She hands you a chalice, but the wine is already dripping through the cracks. You drink anyway, because it's not thirst you're answering, it's the hunger to be seen bleeding with elegance. She doesn't offer affection, she offers thresholds, and each kiss carries the scent of judgment, dressed as perfume. You walk into her embrace like a soldier stepping into fog, not because you believe in love, but because somewhere beneath the skin of the world, you want to be disarmed. She smiles when you kneel, and yet, the moment you pass her test, she forgets you, because she was never testing you. She was testing your need to pass. Her gaze rewards only the man who dares to fail with his teeth bared, unrepentant, grinning as the empire of emotion collapses. She doesn't want your loyalty. She wants to see if you can betray her with the nobility of a god. If you already knew that, if your smile cracks when hers does, then this whisper is yours. Let it echo, like the video. Leave your ruin in the comments. Subscribe and vanish with dignity. She doesn't want to see herself in you. She wants to see herself destroyed in your silence. You believed her eyes searched for resonance, for softness, for the echo of her own yearning in the curvature of your devotion. But she was never seeking a mirror. Mirrors are safe. Mirrors flatter. Mirrors confirm that the illusion is still intact. She wanted something else. She wanted flame, not warmth, not comfort, but the kind of flame that eats its own reflection, the kind that leaves her shattered, not whole. And yet you stood there, still, hoping to be understood. Fool. She saw that, and she grew bored. Every time you spoke her language, she felt suffocated. You didn't know that fluency was failure. You tried to match her rhythm, mirror her wounds, offer her gentleness in exchange for her chaos. But she doesn't need a matching rhythm, she needs rupture. When you nod, she turns away. When you agree, she grows empty. She doesn't want to be held, she wants to be confronted. Not with cruelty, but with indifference so holy it feels like thunder. You thought love was alignment, but she was never looking for someone who aligned, she was looking for someone who eclipsed. She gave you the script, and you read it with reverence. But the audition was for a man who would rip it in half and write in blood instead. She wanted defiance dressed in stillness. She wanted to see if her chaos could bend you, and if it couldn't, whether you'd walk away without needing applause for your composure. She's not drawn to strength. She's drawn to the kind of silence that doesn't care to be called strong. The silence that watches her storms with eyes that do not widen, that do not soften, that do not offer shelter. She throws her fury at you not to be soothed, but to be swallowed, not to be loved, but to see if she still exists when love fails to move you. This is the paradox. The moment you try to fix her, you become invisible. The moment you try to rescue her, you become detestable. The only man she can feel is the one who can burn in front of her and not flinch, the one who lets her collapse without a sermon, without a sigh, without a savior's gaze. You once thought detachment was cruelty, but now you begin to understand she can only trust the man who does not beg to be understood. Her secrets are not buried beneath her sadness. They are forged in her power, and her power is born from rejection. She does not show you her shadow so you can comfort her. She shows it to you to see if you'll survive it, or if you'll become it. She undresses not for desire, but for domination. Her intimacy is a dagger laced in silk, and still you mistook it for invitation. Still you believed your tenderness was the path. It never was. She tests you with vulnerability, but rewards only the man who doesn't flinch, the man who doesn't lean in, the man who watches her unravel and offers not empathy, but emptiness. You fear this is manipulation. No, it is alchemy. She is burning everything false in you. She is stripping your need to please. And if you mistake her fire for cruelty, you will die a sentimental fool. But if you endure it, if you wear your solitude like armor, you will see what lives beneath her gaze. Not love, not loyalty, but freedom. Freedom that smells like betrayal. Freedom that feels like exile. Freedom that forces you to face yourself without her tears to distract you. She gives you the wound, then watches, not because she enjoys your pain, but because she needs to see if you can bleed without begging, if you can stand in ruin without folding into her lap, if you can carry your pride through the ash. She will never say this, she will never admit it, but she wants to be defeated by a man who refuses to play, a man who does not compete, who does not dance for her, beg for her, explain himself. The man who sees through her illusion and smiles anyway. Because once she sees you do not need her, once she realizes her beauty cannot confuse you, once she notices your gaze does not flicker, when she withholds her warmth, she begins to melt. Not into softness, but into surrender. Not into romance, but into respect. And this respect is worth more than any moment of sweetness. Because it was earned through fire. You become the mirror that burns, not reflects. You do not show her who she is, you show her what she cannot control. And in that, you become unforgettable. Not because you pleased her, but because you revealed the one thing she feared her inability to break you. This is your power. Not in rage, not in retreat, but in sovereign stillness, in your refusal to validate her war, in your refusal to defend yourself, in your refusal to need her in any way that compromises your silence. There is a gaze she cannot hold, the one that sees her performance and does not respond, not because it is blind, but because it has transcended the theater. That gaze is your sword. That silence is your crown. That emptiness is your victory. Do not love her in the way she expects. Love her by not reacting. Love her by walking through her illusions without commentary. Love her by letting her masks fall without picking them up. Love her by never asking for love in return. She will hate you for it. She will love you for it. She will never forget you for it. This is not a lesson. This is a revelation. You were never meant to be her mirror. You were meant to be her abyss, the one into which her image disappears, the one into which her ego cannot scream loud enough to echo. And if you're already nodding, if the corners of your mouth already know this fire, then you were born for this silence. The closer you sit to her love, the more you bleed, and she only trusts the one who doesn't flinch. She builds her throne from invitations dipped in blood. The velvet is warm, but only because it has absorbed the heat of those who beg to stay. You see comfort, you see closeness, but she sees a test. She offers you a seat, not to honor you, but to observe where you wince. The arms of her affection are lined with thorns so fine, so elegantly hidden. They feel like whispers before they cut, and the more deeply you lean in, the more it hurts. Yet you stay, pretending the pain means you're getting closer. She watches you caress the barbs and call it intimacy. She watches you bleed and call it sacrifice. She sees your devotion, and she turns her head not because she's cruel, but because your suffering doesn't impress her. Your willingness to endure is not strength to her, it is hunger, and hunger is predictable. Hunger obeys. Hunger flinches. She needs to know what you'll do when the throne starts drawing blood from your pride, not your skin. Will you sit straighter? Will you ask for gentleness? Or will you stay silent, unmoved, unsoftened? Because the only man who survives her is the one who does not mistake her affection for shelter, the one who doesn't crawl toward her warmth but remains still in its absence. She gives in increments, but withdraws in floods, not to torture, but to test the structure of your ego. She offers affection the way a queen offers wine, not to quench, but to intoxicate. And if you drink too quickly, she will laugh. Not out loud, not cruelly, but inward, like a ritual performed for centuries. You were never meant to sip, you were meant to notice the taste, spit it out, and look her in the eye. She wants to see if her poison can reach your spine, or if your spine already turned to gold. She doesn't trust a man who falls for sweetness, because sweetness fades. And what remains is power, always power. The dance is not about romance, it is about center of gravity. She pulls, you lean, she withdraws, you chase. The moment you shift your weight toward her throne, she marks you as unstable, and stability true, indifferent. Silent stability is the only currency she respects. You sit beside her, bleeding, smiling, thinking this is love. But she sees the tremble in your hand when she turns cold. She sees the flicker in your eye when she praises another. She sees how quickly your pride collapses beneath the pressure of her approval. You've given her the blueprint to your control, and she memorizes it without mercy. You thought bleeding made you loyal, but to her, it makes you loud. Your pain speaks, your need speaks, your expectations speak, but she listens only to silence, not absent silence, the kind that does not plead, does not prove, does not posture, the kind that doesn't ask if it's loved, but lets the world reveal itself in time, the kind that refuses to flinch, even as the thorns twist deeper. She watches, always watches. Her affection isn't comfort, it's ceremony, a blade disguised as a blessing. When she touches you, she isn't reaching for your heart, she's measuring your threshold. Every caress is a calibration, every kiss is a key, and if you unlock too easily, she moves on. Not because you were weak, but because you didn't know how to be still. There is a kind of man who survives her throne. He bleeds quietly. He watches her games with no judgment. He does not retreat, nor does he lean in. He lets her shape reveal itself without rushing to define it. He allows her to perform affection without needing a part in the play. He does not flinch when she withdraws. He does not react when she rewards someone else. Because his stillness is not a tactic, it is truth. You thought presence meant participation, but she never asked you to dance. She wanted to see if you could remain unmoved while the music tried to seduce you. Her love is not linear, it is a spiral, and if you follow it, you will be lost. She respects only the man who remains a point of gravity around which her chaos must orbit. She leans in, she tests, she withdraws, she watches, and you, if you are wise, remain unchanged, not distant, not cold, but sovereign. A man whose center is not shaken by thorns, whose silence is not a weapon but a state of being. She cannot play with you if you do not flinch. And in that, she finds the one thing rarer than devotion, reverence. She'll never say it, she'll never name it, but in her bones, she fears the man who cannot be moved by her illusions, the man who does not need to be adored to know his worth, the man who accepts her love without celebration and walks away from her games without injury. That man, that terrifying man, is the one she was testing for all along. You sat on the throne, you bled, you smiled, but now you know it was never about pain. It was about whether pain could distract you, whether it could tempt you into reaction, into justification, into emotional display, and if it could, you failed. But if you sit now, wounded but calm, stripped but centered, then you have passed the real test, not hers, but your own, because the throne was always inside you. Her affection only revealed where you still sought validation, where you still craved to be chosen, where your silence cracked in the face of beauty. Now, you begin to see. She didn't build the throne for you. She built it for herself to watch you fail with dignity or pass without fanfare. If you're still sitting, bleeding, but free, then her love has done its work. What she offers you isn't salvation, but a crown forged from every vow she never meant to keep. She doesn't lie with malice. She lies like the moon lies, promising warmth she cannot deliver. And still you knelt. Still you listened. Still you memorized every word she never believed. She told you she'd never leave. She told you you were different. She whispered futures into your mouth like sugar, and you swallowed them whole, confusing her echo for an oath. But the truth was, this every vow she gave you was a garment she wore for a moment, then discarded when the mirror no longer flattered her. She never intended to save you. She only needed to see if you would mistake her light for a path. The halo she wears, it glows not from virtue, but from the burn of every promise she shed. She collects them like rings from forgotten lovers, each one slipped off without regret, each one given not to bind, but to see if you'd notice when it vanished. You think the betrayal came when she left, but no, the betrayal came in your belief that she ever meant to stay. You offered permanence to a creature made of thresholds. You built a temple for a flicker. You crowned her with your hope, and then blamed her when she disappeared beneath it. She doesn't feel guilt, not because she's heartless, but because in her world, all promises are poems beautiful, but never meant to be obeyed. You mistook her rhythm for reality, her sweetness for substance, her gaze for gravity, but she was only reflecting your need, and when your need grew sharp, she stepped back, untouched. There is a kind of man who curses her for this, who calls her manipulative, heartless, false. But deeper than that outrage is a softer truth. He was hoping to be chosen by a woman who never needed to choose. Because to choose is to bind, and to bind is to lose power. She dances where power remains fluid, where no bond can hold her, where no word becomes a chain. So she offers you her halo, not as grace, as game, as fire disguised as promise. And you, if you are still ruled by the hunger to be loved, will wear it like a crown until the heat scorches your scalp and you scream at the gods for sending you an angel who only came to watch you burn. But here is the darker revelation: she didn't break her promise. You broke yours, the silent one you made to yourself when you decided to believe her. When you abandoned your own knowing for the thrill of her illusion. When you said, "This time will be different," while watching her mouth shape the same familiar myth. She never asked you to believe. You volunteered. You placed your identity at her altar and begged her to guard it. You gave her the knife and then acted surprised when she used it. You dressed her in your expectations and called her divine. But she is not your salvation. She is your undoing, and in that undoing, a mirror. This is what men don't speak of: the sacred ache of being forgotten by the woman who once named your soul. The cold truth of being a chapter in a story she never intended to finish. You ache not because she left, but because you stayed in a future that never arrived. And now, if you are wise, you will see the real gift. Not her love, not her warmth, but her disappearance. Because only through the vanishing does the lie become visible. And once you see the lie, not with rage but with reverence, you become untouchable, not hardened, just aware. Aware that salvation never wears perfume. You were hoping for redemption, but what she gave you was ruin. And ruin is where men are reborn. The ones who survive her are not the ones who change her, they are the ones who change themselves in her wake. Not to become bitter, but to become vast. To become silent in a way that no promise can enter. You thought love would save you, but now you understand love was the illusion she offered so you could finally abandon illusions. Every time she whispered, "You're the one," She was asking if you still needed to be. Every time she promised, "I won't leave." She was offering you a test. Will you believe the storm when it smiles? She walks away not to hurt you, but to see if you will follow, not her yourself, into the wreckage, into the absence, into the silence that lives beneath your belief in her. That is the only throne you will ever truly inherit. She doesn't punish, she doesn't even remember, because she never lived in the story the way you did. For her, it was a season. For you, it was a scripture. And now you're left holding the pages, wondering why they burn. But let them. Let the words disintegrate. Let the vows collapse. Let the smoke fill your lungs until you cough out every need you tried to feed with her affection. You do not need a new promise. You need to stand in the absence of promises and still remain whole. The halo was never meant to be worn. It was meant to be witnessed from a distance, like a fire on the mountain you do not climb, like a song you no longer chase, like a ghost that once seduced your hunger and now dances behind your eyes, no longer feared. You will meet her again, not in flesh, in form, in others, in echoes, and each time she will smile with the same radiant cruelty, and each time you will feel nothing, not because you are numb, but because you are awake. You've returned to the place before her, not innocent, but sovereign, and if this silence knows you, let it echo. Like the video. Leave your ashes in the comments. Subscribe and wear your ruin like a crown. She vanishes the way smoke leaves a burning temple slowly, without apology, without a final shape. You wait for closure, for reason, for anything that makes the ruin feel sacred, but there is only silence. No wreckage, no footprints, just the memory of her voice saying your name like a question no one plans to answer. You look down and see a crown, not gold, not holy, just a twisted ring of thorns and ash. You could wear it. You could pretend it means you survived. But you don't. You leave it there, unworn, unnamed. Because the real victory was never in being chosen. It was in walking away without needing to be. The next time someone asks what happened to you, you'll say nothing. Because the truth doesn't need words. It already lives in your silence. And some silences are louder than love, and more eternal than betrayal, and heavier than memory.